And welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Glad you decided to join us this week. This week's show is about women in the law.
Yes, it's an evolving concept of women taking their place, rightful place in the practice of law. Back in the 60s, there were probably 1 to 3% women in law school, graduating from law school. Today, it's more like 50%, a tremendous escalation over the past 30 or 40 years. And it's going to be interesting to see if it continues or if it slows down or reverses. But the two women who are joining us today are going to be telling us about a program that they've just completed called Women in the Law. And they'll be discussing some of the problems that a woman faces and the opportunities that a woman faces in the practice of law.
Should be fascinating, and we'll get to it right after this break. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, and we'll be right back. Women in the Law, today's subject on The Verdict.
Every day America uses clean-burning natural gas instead of coal or oil is a day of victory for our environment. That's why Chesapeake chose to explore for natural gas exclusively, and we've never looked back. Because natural gas burns twice as clean as oil or coal, and reducing carbon emissions to combat potential global warming is every bit as urgent as cutting our dependence on energy imports. As America's #1 driller of new gas wells, Chesapeake is moving fast to find untapped reserves of natural gas here at home. It's the right fuel for America's economy and the fuel for a clean air future. We just happen to be early to see it so clearly. Chesapeake, natural gas wins the day.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guests.
Yeah, we're very pleased today to have two guests going to talk about women in the law and the recent conference. On my right across the table is Elizabeth Joyner. She's senior counsel at the Williams Companies in Tulsa. She did her undergraduate work at Cameron University and her law work at the University of Tulsa and graduated with honors from both institutions. She practices environmental law. She's also active in pro bono work and civic activities in Tulsa. And she's the author of a book that we're going to tell you more about in a little bit. But perhaps most importantly for today, she was one of 3 co-chairs for the Oklahoma Bar Association Women in the Law Conference. She drove all the way down from Tulsa on a rainy day to join us. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
On my left is Cathy Christensen. Cathy is a managing partner of Cathy Christensen law firm. Her practice is focused mainly on family law and in civil litigation. She's also one of the 3 co-chairs of Women in the Law Conference. She's a trustee of the Oklahoma Bar Foundation and has been for a number of years. She received the 2006 Oklahoma Bar Association's Spotlight Award recently for outstanding service as a woman in the law. Her first visit to The Verdict. Cathy, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you're
happy to be here. Thanks.
Recently held an event called Women in the Law. What took place there?
The Women in Law brought in one speaker, Joan Goldsmith, as our primary speaker, and we focused on communication issues, a little bit about how women and men do communicate differently, ways to hone our, as we called it, a toolbox, and our communication skills in resolving conflicts or in just making your office a better place to be. So the whole day's event was communication and on how to present ourselves.
Elizabeth, in general, if a young woman comes up to you and asks your advice, I'm thinking about becoming a lawyer, what questions would you ask her back to determine whether or not you think she might have a successful career or a happy, meaningful life in a career in law?
I probably would first ask her why she wanted to be a lawyer and what skills she thinks she has that would make her a good lawyer. And I'd listen and see what she said. And if, you know, she loves learning and loves communicating and loves to write and loves to read and thinks she wants to help the community and help other people, that's probably some good traits to have if she wants to go to law school.
I'm hearing the word communicate now twice here quickly. It appears that is something that's very important to both of you, and women in law need to be able to communicate, not only with men, because you mentioned the differences between the two sexes as far as communication, but just in general, if a young person is going to be involved in the law, they better realize that communication is highly valued.
I think so. I think right off the bat, you're going to be expected to write well, and that's going to be important in your briefs to the court, in your motions before the court, in your legal briefs to your partners or clients, and then when you need to speak to your partners or to your clients, you're going to know how to need to know how to communicate well, and also to the court. You're going to need to be able to present your arguments and your evidence and do it in a way that is well understood.
Cathy, tell us a little bit more about the program. What kind of attendance did you have? What was the general reaction of the participants to what was given to them at the program?
Oh, it was great reception for the conference. And let me backtrack a moment.
Okay.
Elizabeth and I have co-chaired with also another attorney, Faith Orlowski from Tulsa, the Women in Law Conference for 3 or 4 years. We usually always have about 100 to 150 women participating.
Are they all lawyers?
All lawyers. Sometimes the same women come every year and sometimes new women. This year we focused on communication and how to hone communication skills. We also had a local speaker, Ann Hoover, from Hoover Etiquette and Protocol, and from what we've learned, everyone had a wonderful day.
What did you get feedback from your participants?
We do. We get feedback. We also have a panel discussion both in the morning and in the afternoon with more senior attorneys and judges on the panel discussion. And that provides a great forum for the younger attorneys to ask issues that they may be facing in the courtroom or in their offices.
Now, you had Judge Cawthorn on?
Yes, Judge Cawthorn, Professor
She's been a guest
Conger.
on this show before.
And it's just a wonderful day, and it focuses not just, it's sponsored by the Women in Law. However, we do have men that come, and a lot of the issues can be addressed to both men or women.
Well, how has the program evolved through the years? Is it pretty much today what you all started to establish a few years back?
In a sense, I'd say yes. I think that a lot of times we now have more females in the practice of law. We have females, over about 42% of females pass the bar. So since this program began, we do have more women, and we face different issues. So in that way, it's evolved from the issues that they faced when they were one of a few to now we're about 40% of the attorney workforce.
Elizabeth, let me ask you real briefly. The experience I have seen, having been involved in the law school life for a long time, back from the time when there were 1 or 2% of the class women to now where it's in the neighborhood of 50% in many institutions. One thing that's always stuck out to me was that even when the percentages were lower, the top 10 the top 10 students were disproportionately large numbers of women. Why do women seem to succeed in law school better than men?
That's a really tough question, and Cathy and I were visiting a little bit about it before we came to the show today. And
I don't think there's a lot of debate about whether it's true or not.
I think it is true. And
but why is that?
And the number one person in my law school class was a woman, and she was a theater arts major. And I don't know. I think...
Is that because we're on stage? Is that why that's...
No, I think the people who study education have been trying to figure that out. So I'm probably ill-equipped to give you a really educated answer about that, but I just know from personally that I know we study, and I know we study pretty hard. At least I did, and a lot of my girlfriends did. And I can't speak for the men, but I know men who've done quite well too.
Well, certainly are. Cathy, what's your take on that?
I think that females have done better in school beginning in first grade, and I don't know if we're wired differently or we perform differently, or maybe over the years the tests are generated to help us show our knowledge, or that we just communicate better. But as Elizabeth said, I think that's a good question for educators.
Well, having taught law school for in excess of 25 years, I will tell you that I can almost divide the final exams up by, they're anonymous, but I can almost tell, not simply by handwriting, whether a woman wrote it or a man, because the women's final exams are generally better organized, they're easier to read, they're more structured, and they get to the point finally that some exams never do. And I think your writing skills and your ability to communicate what you're talking about in the forum may be at the heart of this question.
You've recently written a book using your writing skills that are so important for an attorney. It's called Love Renewed, Looking into the Heart and Soul of the One You Loved. Is there any legal aspect of this book, or was this totally using some of the skills maybe you possess, but not part of the legal skills?
Not part of the legal skills. I just wanted to know, during that first year I was married, what my husband was thinking, and I'd ask him and he'd often say nothing, and I knew I'd married a really smart guy and he was thinking something. So after reading many, many communication books, I put together a list of questions, a list of 18 questions, and we've been answering those same questions now for the past 14 years.
14 years, you still haven't figured him out. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, we do communicate at least once a year.
I'm going to hold up this is what the cover of your book looks like. It is out shortly. Again, it is called Love Renewed. We have another segment with these ladies. We'll be right back. We're discussing women in the law today on The Verdict.
Shining is taking responsibility. At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, we know managing your health care can be overwhelming, and it's our job to help you meet the challenge. By guiding, supporting, and showing the way, we encourage you to gain control. Because we believe the best tool we can give you is the confidence to take charge. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, shining through.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers. We're visiting with Elizabeth Joyner and Cathy Christensen. They're discussing women in the law, which was a recent forum that was held, but we're also discussing a wide variety of issues that have to do with women who make their living in law.
Let me ask Elizabeth this question. I know you've had some law firm practice as well as working with the Williams companies, and I'm familiar, and our audience may be familiar with the term glass ceiling, which means is there just a limit placed by law firms on how high they will allow women to progress within the firm. What have you found in your own experience in that regard?
I think things have improved since women started practicing law. I think things have greatly improved in my opinion. But I think in today's legal profession that it's going to depend on what law firm you're talking about. I think you have some very progressive law firms who are very family friendly, not just to women but to men as well, in terms of giving flexible hours for taking time off for family events. But I think you also have a number of firms who are very traditional and are not as family friendly.
Well, do you find that firms are more likely to be looking for a woman lawyer? I mean, resumes considered equal, classroom work considered equal. Would they? Is there a trend toward hiring more women attorneys?
You know, I don't know about a trend, but I can tell you that what I have seen recently is there's been a push for a more diverse firm. Not just women, but also minorities. And I know at the Williams Company, they think diversity is incredibly important from a business model and a business perspective, and they do strive to have balance in the workplace.
Cathy, I know your experience is not simply in Oklahoma, but you've had contact with women lawyers from around the country in meetings and all. How do you think Oklahoma compares on this glass ceiling problem with perhaps other places?
Last year, November '06, Elizabeth and I attended the ABA Women in Law Conference, or the Commission on the Women in the Legal World. And after talking to women from all over the world, and law firms of 500 to 800 to 1,300 people, Elizabeth and I commented that we were lucky in Oklahoma. It seems as though Oklahoma is very friendly to female attorneys. Our law firms have keyed into diversity many years perhaps than other parts of the country or parts of the world. So we feel pretty blessed to be here in Oklahoma.
We have some women on our committee that really are very proud of the law firms they're in and brag about how good these law firms are to them in terms of creating a workplace that's very friendly and encouraging, but also very challenging too in terms of work.
Well, we've seen the rate of women in law schools go from virtually nothing up to the 50% level, and then we've seen some recent publicity. I'm not sure of the nature of the scholarship involved behind it, but some recent publicity indicating that maybe that trend is reversing. Cathy, what do you think about that?
I don't think the trend is reversing. I know since '02 we've had about 42% of the new admittees to the Oklahoma Bar Association being female. The law schools that I visited with say they hover around 50% of females in the class. There's a decline in overall admission or applicants into law schools.
Male and female.
Male and female. So I think that the economy has been so good in different areas that perhaps that has attracted a lot of brainy people who might otherwise have gone into the practice of law. And that probably had a large effect on it, whether it be geology or software. But I think the practice of law will always be an honorable profession and will draw the cream of the crop.
Well, if women are increasing in numbers so rapidly at the college level, at the law school level, are we going to have a day where there'll be 75% of all the attorneys and all the judges will be women? Do you see the trend continuing, or will it, when it reaches 50%, will we hit kind of a level where it'll just fluctuate back and forth?
I think we'll have to see a lot of social and cultural changes before we get to that. We always have the problem as a society, who's going to care for our young and who's going to care for our elders now that we're living longer. So I don't think it's just one factor to be considered. I think it's multifaceted. So will we ever get to that point? I don't know. But it'll be interesting.
Well, let me throw out something to either of you. It is said, and my experience would underline that that's probably true. It's said that the women are every bit as good a lawyer as a man, but they're better judges. Why is it, do you think, that women seem to, when they put on the robe, perhaps do better in the judicial role than even a man does in a problem-solving mode?
They don't want to touch this one.
No, I was just
We
thinking
won't tell
that,
any judges you said this.
well, one of our judges in our morning panel mentioned that we recently had an opening on our Supreme Court and there were no women applicants. There have not been a lot of women applying for judgeships. And that was one of our small discussions, is how do we get the women to assume more positions in leadership? Why do they make better judges? I think they're better able to listen. I think women listen well. But I don't know, I've had some remarkable male judges and remarkable female judges.
I have too, and that's why I wasn't going to jump right on that question. My husband's a judge, and some of my best friends are judges who are women, and so I see quality judges with both male and females.
What would you tell a woman that was looking at going to law school about how to balance a home life and a professional life?
I think there are several things they can do. For me, it's planning. Just planning ahead for the week, communicating with my spouse about what is going on in his week, what's going on in my week. In fact, we have a family meeting every Sunday night, and my son's included, and he tells us what's going on in his week, and so we can talk about things and better understand what's going on for each other. But so I'd say planning, communication, expectations. I think one of the things that women do is they try to do it all, and then they feel guilty when they can't do it all. So part of it is giving yourself permission to create boundaries and not trying to be superwoman.
Cathy?
Elizabeth and I did visit some about that question, and she and I really do guard our family time and our personal time ferociously, and I think we have realistic expectations, which a lot of times the conference will center on older females, lawyers and judges, emphasizing to the young females that you just have to plan. There's a time for everything, and it's okay to take your time. You might not have it all at the same time, but through the course of your lifetime practicing law, you will have it all. And I think that's the best balance, is planning.
We have run out of time. Thank you both for coming on the show. Cathy Christensen, Elizabeth Joyner, good luck with the book.
Thank you.
And good luck with Women in Law and next
you.
year's forum.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Kent and I'll have a
Appreciate
final
it.
word right after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
We are back on The Verdict, wrapping up a show on women in the law.
Yeah, it's an awfully good conference that they have every year, sponsored by the Oklahoma Bar Association, and thanks to our two guests for coming and talking to us about it. Women are making a very positive, significant impact in the practice of law and on the bench, and in settling disputes other ways, and I think the numbers will continue to increase.
And we mentioned Elizabeth's book, which talks about male-female relationship. It's called Love Renewed. The book is just now coming out, so if you'd like to get more information on it, go onto the internet, loverenewed.net, and that would be Elizabeth's new book. Also, go to our website and tell us about a show you'd like to see right here on this program, theverdict.tv. That's theverdict.tv. Log on, send us an email about an interesting guest or a topic you'd like to see us discuss. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We will see you next time on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.